By now, we are displaying the complete threads on the home page, and we have the thread page that we have not linked anywhere yet. To give it a better shape, we can show a list of the threads in the home page and allow users to navigate to the thread they want to read. It's often beneficial to think about how you want to use a feature in your application before you start developing the components. I will open up our page home component, that is our homepage. Let's delete what we have in the template as we don't need it anymore. It would be nice to have a heading and use a component to display a list of threads instead of doing the v-for directly in the page home component. Something like a component called thread list would be nice for now. Let's create this thread list component under our components directory. In order to fill in the template, I will consult our mockup to copy the designed HTML. If you don't have a mockup for your project or the design is not important, you can just go ahead and create the divs and the other elements to create the feature you need. In our mockup directory, the page that contains a list of threads is the forum page. If you want to get familiar with the mockups we have provided you, feel free to open the several static files in your browser. This way, you will also get some spoilers of what's about to come. I will move on and open forum HTML in the browser. This element here with the title of threads is the list of threads I'm looking for. So I will copy this HTML code. Now I will paste the code inside our thread list component template. I will collapse the divs with a class of thread to get a better understanding of our markup. Outside the div with a class of thread list, we have a pagination element. It will take a while until we get to that, so I will remove it for now. So now we have a clean template for our list of threads. Each div with a class of thread represents a thread. Thus, I will delete all of them except of one that I will apply a v-for directive to create multiple elements dynamically based on the threads we have in our data. Sweet! Now let's see what we want to show within each thread. Here we want to show the thread title. I will again use the hashtag for the link, and I will show you how to implement the links later. In this element, we display the name of the user that created the thread. I will copy the script from page home to implement that quickly. Our helper method is called userById. Using our helper, we can find the user with the ID that is the same with thread user ID, and then grab its name. Here, instead of yesterday, we can have the thread published at property. The last element is about the recent activity. We don't know how to get these values besides of the replies count, so we can either delete the element or use the details of the thread temporarily. I prefer to use the thread details so our app looks more fun. Initially, I will get the replies count by using the length of the post property of our thread. For the avatar URL, I will use our helper, userById, and then grab the avatar property of the user. I will also use the name of the creator for the recent activity. And the published at property. That should be good. Let's check our work in the browser. It doesn't work. That's probably because we have not imported our component inside page home. Let's fix that. We should also define our component inside the components option. Let's check again. Great, we get the list, but we also get this strange value. Let's check that quickly. Right, so here, instead of showing the complete user object, we want to display just the user name. Fantastic! Here you can see the thread titles, the information of the user that created the thread, the count of the replies, and some information of when the thread and by whom was created. I notice here that I missed the word replies, so I will add that quickly. Perfect. Let's review what we have made. In the page home component, we are importing the thread list that renders all the threads. In the thread list, we create a div for each thread in our threads data. Our thread list component is now tightly coupled to our data.json file. No matter where we want to use this component, it will display all the threads that we have. This is not a good behavior for a component. We want our component to be reusable, so we are able to command it which threads to display. Then, in any place of our website we want to display a list of threads, we can import it and reuse it. To make that happen, we should make the component accept the threads as a prop instead of importing all the threads inside our component directly. Our threads prop should be type of array and always provided, so I will mark it as required. Now we should delete the threads data. We still need the posts and the users because we are searching into these arrays to find the related objects as we don't have an API to fetch data from yet. Now in the home page, we should delete what we don't need. If we try to render our list like that, we will get an error in the browser console because we have not passed the threads prop to our component that is required. The error that we get here signals that we did a good job defining our prop, so we know exactly why we don't see any threads. Perfect, let's pass the threads as a prop. Back in the browser, now we get the list with all available threads. Awesome. You might want to break your thread list component down to use a thread list item component that will include the logic for the single threads. That way, essentially the thread list responsibility would be just to create multiple instances of the thread list item component. If you have quite some logic for each item and you think that would be beneficial for your project, this is a good practice to apply. In our case, the logic is pretty minimal yet, so I don't think that we need to break down the component for now. Thus, I will keep all the logic here. Feel free to create the thread list item component by yourself if you want to.